you have managed. Hopefully, most of you have managed to log on to Turning Point. If you haven't managed to do that yet, please do so. So you can see there the instructions on the first slide. If anyone wants to interrupt to let me know that they're having problems, perhaps you can put that into the Zoom chat. I won't be able to see the Zoom chat, but Joanne, perhaps you could interrupt me if people are messaging there. Hopefully, most people have managed to get into a Turning Point, so we'll move on. At each slide, or most slides where we're using the Turning Point polling, the address to get into the website and the session ID will be on the bottom of the slide. So if you haven't managed to get in, you should be able to get in at each point that we come onto a poll, and I hope that makes sense. There are two different ways I'll be using Turning Point today. There are anonymous polls, and then there's anonymous chat. So you can switch between the two, either on your phone or on another window on your laptop, and you can ask questions or make comments anonymously in the Turning Point chat as well. So look forward to that. Now, I think we've got, how many? We've got 24 in. So, okay, I would normally ask people to put their cameras on so we can all sort of see each other, which is quite nice, but it's probably a bit too many of you tonight. But if you do want to put your camera on and say hi, that would be fantastic. I should say that for the anonymous chat, you can use a nickname or you can leave it blank. We'll pick a best nickname at the end of my session. Okay, all right. Hopefully everyone's managed to get in there, and let's move on. So GMC and you. What we're going to do today is look at our role, particularly around patient safety, around medical education, looking at particular aspects of our guidance that are useful for you as FY1 doctors, looking at the registration process briefly, and just a little bit about revalidation. Okay, so let's move on to our first poll of today. Now, while I do this, polls should be open, so hopefully you can get in there. Anyone who's joined and not yet on Turning Point, you see at the bottom there is the URL to go to, ttpoll.eu, into the address bar, not the search bar, and then the ID is Danwin 2021. So when you hear GMC, it's a simple Likert scale. Does your blood pressure rise at all? Be interested to see what the results to this are. While you're doing that, just want to say that we're going to spend only about 3 minutes on each of these topics. Don't worry about taking too many notes. We will get a PDF of the presentation to you afterwards. You can use it as a reference document. I will need to go through this quite quickly. But don't worry. There are a few slides, but don't worry. You get to have it as a reference document afterwards. Okay, right, let's see how we're doing in terms of answers to this question. Okay, here we go. Right, so 64% of you agree that your blood pressure rises. Okay, so a big part of my job is to try and reassure people around this one. There is no need for anyone's blood pressure to rise, mention the GMC at all. There are many myths, urban myths out there, which many people really truly believe, which aren't. Well, we can explain them to you. We can tell you a little bit more about the background. But really, what I'm here to do today is to show you that our guidance is here to help you be even more of a superhero doctor than you already are and will be. And also hopefully to let you be a less stressed doctor with lower blood pressure, particularly when we're mentioned. Okay, so first of all, our role and functions. Our ultimate purpose is to maintain what do we think? You can answer up to all 7 of these options. So which of these options do you think describe our ultimate purpose? There may be more than one. Okay. I'm going to give you just another few seconds for this one. What do we think? Okay, all right, we've got patient safety, and we have got patients' trust in doctors and public trust in doctors. Okay, so quite a lot of these are true. You know, we are interested in doctor safety, absolutely. Our role as set out in legislation is around patient safety and public trust in doctors. Okay, so what we're really looking at is D and oh, that's interesting that I was arrived at the wrong one. It's actually H, public trust in doctors. So it's not just about individual patients' trust in individual doctors. It's about the entire standing of the profession as a whole in the eyes of the public, and as well patient safety. But we do care about doctors because happy doctors make for happy patients. Okay, that's our way in, if you like, through our legislative purpose. So how do we actually do this? So first of all, at the heart of everything that we do are ethical standards. And everything that we do is mapped to our ethical standards. And now all our ethical standards spring from good medical practice, which is, you know, our core guidance. I'm sure you're very familiar with it from medical school and from any other experience you've got. Yeah, everything that the GMC does maps back to GMP. A fairly high level document, but everything maps back to that. In terms of education, we set the standards and outcomes for all medical education and training. That includes approving curricula, such as the foundation program as well, through outcomes for provisionally registered doctors, which is the standards for FY1, promoting excellence, which is our overall standards. And of course, we quality assure those standards too. That's one of the purposes of the National Training Survey, which is open right now, closes the 18th of May. I'll talk about that later. Registration, fairly straightforward, of course. You'll know this is, you know, probably the main purpose of the GMC is to make sure that people on the register are qualified doctors. We'll have 300,000 of you any one time, so that's where most of our effort goes. Revalidation, I'll talk about later, but as I'm sure most of you know, just a 5-yearly cycle by which you demonstrate you're up to date and fit to practice. And fitness to practice is just a fancy term for investigations. I like the fact that it's last upside down and at the bottom, because while that might be what we're best known for, it's actually, in a sense, although it's important, it's what we're least interested in, if you like, because it's at the end of processes. It's the end of a journey, and it affects a tiny proportion of doctors. Far fewer than 1% of doctors ever come into those processes or are erased from the register, and 90% of the very few doctors who ever are erased from the register, just to kind of, you know, put this in some context for you, 90% of them is for serious crime. Most of them are in jail or would be in jail. So it's murder, rape, theft, sexual harassment, fraud, cover-ups, that kind of thing. Unless a doctor poses an ongoing threat to patient safety because of clinical ability, then it's not going to reach our thresholds. There's a bit of a myth out there that what the GMC does is, you know, doctors who don't perform well clinically, even if it's a one-off horrible sort of episode, they're referred to us. That's not what happens actually. Single clinical incidents, not generally interested in. If a doctor poses a serious ongoing threat, then of course that's a different matter. But I can do a whole presentation on that. Just to come back to promoting excellence, this is our these are our key this is our key standards for education and training. I'm going to just highlight just now 2 lists of outcomes for provisionally registered doctors. Okay, so this is what we're looking at right now. This is what you're working to just now. And the second one. Okay, so I mentioned NTS earlier. This is the way that one of the ways we quality assure medical education and training. It's open just now, closes May the 18th. So we'd be extremely grateful if you could use that. We always describe it as being your chief weapon to let us know how things are going. And we can, where necessary, work with training environments where there are issues to help them address issues and to turn them around. And that does happen. It's not always easy, but it does happen. Okay, looking at provisional registration, the process. I'll let you have a quick look through that. But essentially, we are at April, May, so we're going to be inviting final year students to start applying for provisional registration. Moving on to assess applications. There may be further information required, particularly if maybe there's fitness to practice declarations that are made, etc. And then, as you see there, we get the graduation lists from the schools and then process them in time for the start of August. Okay, and then round again in a circle. Now, we used to do physical ID checks. We can't do that at the moment. Looking at alternative ways of doing ID checks, perhaps digitally. Okay, that is essentially the process. Just a couple of key messages around provisional registration. Of course, it's required for FY1, applicable for foundation posts only. The other thing here really is to say to apply early. That's the message we give to students is always around applying early when they come into to F1. But okay, completing the FTP declaration, the fitness to practice declaration, honestly, is a key one for all doctors at all stages of registration, and that applies also on full registration too. So you see this process mirrors provisional registration, invitations in May, assessments to July, and then your foundation school will send certificate of experience to us, and then registration takes place before August. And again, just some key messages around this one. Ensuring registration before you start works. That's the same for F1. Obviously, that's one of the biggest issues we have around registration is F1s and F2s starting work without actually being registered. Please do check that. Again, answering honestly, fitness practice declarations. The reality is that we turn down very, very, very few doctors or medical students moving into F1 for fitness practice declarations. What's almost always far more of an issue is if a doctor or student tries to hide something. That's more of an issue. We only reject literally a handful of students coming into F1, for example, each year. Most of them manage to get in the next year. And again, apply early. That's one of the biggest difficulties around registration. Please do apply early. I said I'd talk about revalidation, just conscious of time here. So the main message here is it's only part of annual appraisal. Okay, your annual appraisal covers much more than what's required for revalidation. But the bits of it that are relevant to us are again mapped to GMP. So if you get to know GMP well, then you'll be fine. And these are the areas that we're looking for evidence from to prove that you're up to date and fit to practice over this 5-yearly cycle. Okay. All right, just going on to look at relevant guidance. So these are key ones that I've picked out, which are relevant to you. Again, you'll have these in the PDF, so I'll not spend too much time on them just now. But let's go back to our polling. I'm just going to, as I say, pick out some very relevant topical issues around guidance that we know are key bits of advice really for FY1. So hopefully everyone's managed to ask this. Tell us if you have accepted a police caution, you should or must. Let's see. Okay, absolutely, well done. From anywhere around the world, in fact. And again, the issue here normally is not what the caution is for. The issue here is about probity and honesty. Okay. All right. Good. So there is one principle missing from this, our new decision-making and consent guidance. Do we know what it is? Anyone? I'm going to put something in the chat. Yeah, that's probably quite a difficult one, actually. This is, doctors must try to find out what matters to share relevant information with patients. Key principle of our new guidance. The message here is that consenting and simply getting a patient to sign a consent form is not what it's about. If there is any issue, then actually what people are looking for is evidence that meaningful conversations have been had, and the doctors have shared relevant information based on what is what matters to patients. Okay, and there's more guidance advice in our guidance on that. Key one for us. Okay. Delegation and supervision. So when you delegate a task, it's, as well as the person delegating it to you, it's up to you to ensure that you have the necessary knowledge and skills, if not to seek help. Big message, always ask for help. Don't feel that you won't be seen as being a good doctor if you need to ask for help. In exactly the opposite, in fact. Okay. And also, this guidance was a little bit further than good medical practice and others about encouraging you, if you are being made to work out with your competence, so if you feel that you are insufficiently supported, that's when you might want to consider raising a concerns. This is giving you confidence and the green light to do that. We'll talk about raising concerns, but actually that is normally welcomed by employers, in fact. Okay. And then being supervised, similarly, you must recognize and work within limits of competence, make sure you're appropriately supervised, and then ask for help again. And this is from leadership and management for all doctors. So this is making clear that leadership and management is something that's applicable even to you as an F1. I'm sure you understand that, but this is a key piece of guidance for you. Okay. Just some other ones about being a team player. This is, again, all these, I've highlighted these areas of guidance because these are potentially issues which can arise during F1. So please do have a think about these if you've not read these pieces of guidance already. Respect for other non-medical colleagues' rules, absolutely key. Something like 40% of errors in surgery, for example, come about because of a breakdown of communication or disrespect between medical staff and nursing staff. So there are real reasons for me highlighting these. 7 there, you must tackle discrimination, and you should challenge colleagues who don't meet that standard around protected characteristics such as ethnicity, gender, etc. This is giving you encouragement and confidence to do that. Okay. All right, moving on to outside of practice. Have you seen any of these breaches of social media? While you're doing that, I'm just going to explain that the reason I'm highlighting this is that you've probably heard people banging on about this. Oh, social media again. Okay, we know to be sensible. It is the one area where doctors are still getting themselves into trouble. There's a bit of a groupthink sometimes arises around, private WhatsApp groups, for example. Oh, it's fine to have a private WhatsApp group. No one else is going to see it. It's only on social media. It's a way for us to release steam, all the rest of it. Those are all absolutely fine. But the reality is that if you wouldn't say it publicly, you definitely don't want to say it on social media. It's actually the reverse. This is the #1 area where doctors are increasingly getting into trouble rather than less. It's also the #1 issue that affects medical students in terms of revealing patient confidential information. And that carries on, unfortunately, into F1 and F2. There was a 30% increase in referrals to us in March 2020 during the start of the pandemic, and the bulk of those were for misuse of social media. Okay, so have you seen these? Let's see. Yep, breaches of confidentiality. So 29% of you have seen breaches of confidentiality, and 14% for these others. Yeah, exactly. It is a widespread issue. You may not do it yourself, but please do keep colleagues right on this one. We have social media guidance. Just picked out two very straightforward paragraphs from there, but there is more detailed guidance in there, such as checking privacy settings. A reminder to check your employer's social media policy. I said I talk about raising concerns. Again, key one for F1s. I always say that you're the canaries in the mines. You come in there, with a fresh understanding of how things should be. You're very good at spotting where things aren't as they should be. And there are various ways you can raise concerns. It doesn't have to be destructive or confrontational. It can be absolutely very constructive. There's advice on our website under our speaking up section, which talks about working together in groups. If you work in groups, it's obviously gives people more security. It allows you to gather more evidence. It gives weight to your concerns. No one's asking you individual trainees to go out there and raise concerns directly up to senior management without advice and support. No, but there's lots of help for you out there with that. Hopefully you'll never need to raise a concern. There you go. Just on that, one more poll for you. If a patient has suffered, you should. What do you think? You have up to 5 responses here. We're nearly finished, by the way. Okay, let's see how people are doing. What do we think? Okay. Yep, absolutely. Just on offering an apology. Absolutely offer an apology. Absolutely key one from our duty of candor guidance, which I will send links with the PDF of the presentation afterwards. You can have a look at that. Offering an apology, a really genuine apology, reduces complaints by 40%. Okay, and medical defense organizations, I'm sure we'll hear later, do advise doctors to apologize. If you hear anyone saying, don't apologize because an admission of liability, not true. Okay. Reflection is an absolutely key one to all this. And again, I'm sure that you've done a lot on this medical school. Again, just a pointer towards our reflective practice guidance. A plea here to understand that it's about learning. It's not about what actually happened. That goes somewhere else. It's particularly if it's a negative experience, but we want you to reflect on positive experiences because that's actually how humans learn best. And also emphasizing group reflection is the way that you really make gains for patient safety. Okay, all right. And then another quick question for you. What do you think the answer is to this? Okay. All right. Okay, this is just one of the many myths that exist about us. We have never done this, and we would never do this. In fact, we asked the government to even disallow courts to ask for reflective practice notes. They wouldn't do that, but we're very clear that reflective practice notes are things that are there for reflective practice and for improvement. They are not to be taken as a record of things that have happened, and therefore we would never ever ask for reflective practice notes or ever use them in cases. There is a myth that we did use them in one case. It's absolutely not true. Okay, all right. Just to point out that there are on our website a whole series of learning materials to help you put our guidance into practice. It's putting our guidance into practice, following our guidance, which is what we ask for in terms of fitness to practice. As I say, it's not about clinical error, it's about professionalism and ethics. And there's a whole load of decision-making flowcharts, case studies, etc. on our website there. Okay, let's redo this poll. We've not had time to go into too much detail on things, but hopefully I've managed to reassure you a little bit. So let's see what people think about this one. Okay, I've only got a few responses in. Okay, we're right. Can't get a few more in. I'm going to close it now. Let's see how we did. Okay. All right, there's some improvement there. Okay, I can come back and I can answer questions. If you want to put any questions or comments in the anonymous Turning Point chat, I can answer them while you're listening to the other speakers if you like. Okay, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. That was very helpful, especially in terms of the GMC documents that we are recommended to go through. One thing I regretted was not reading through them before I started my F1, really. Thank you very much again. So next up, we have Georgina, who is from the BMA, just to give us a quick kind of introduction. Georgina, are you there?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Brilliant, yeah. I'll just try and share my screen. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I think that has worked.
That's working.
Brilliant, first hurdle overcome. Thanks so much for having me come and present to everyone tonight. So my name is Georgina and I'm the Member Engagement Coordinator for the BMA based here in Wales. And I'm just going to take you through a few ways that the BMA supports doctors in training in Wales. A lot of the information is specifically to do with Wales, but there's also an awful lot of it that will really help you if you travel across the UK to do your training. So really quickly, in case you don't know who we are, the BMA is the Doctors' Trade Union and Professional Association. So we are the voice of the medical profession, representing all doctors and medical students across the UK on issues that affect you. We're here if you experience any difficulties at work or you need career support or you want to build on your professional development. Just to say, we're not an indemnity and we don't deal with patient complaints, so we recommend you seek cover elsewhere. Yeah, so one big service that we provide to our members is individual advice and support. We understand the unique needs and challenges that you will face as a junior doctor. When you join the BMA, we can provide you with individual, free and easy access to a variety, to 230 employment advisors who are really specialists in the advice they can offer you. So there really is someone to speak to if you've got any issues in the workplace. When it comes to collective support in Wales, we have the Welsh Junior Doctor Committee, which is WJDC, and I'll refer to them quite a bit in this presentation. So they stand up for the rights of all junior doctors on education, training and contractual issues. The committee is formed of members from across the Welsh Health Boards, and there are different stages of their training. WJDC work with Welsh Government to lobby for improvements in medical profession. Current committee priorities include the Fatigue and Facilities Charter, which I'll talk about a bit later on because it's really important to know about it, single lead employer, and mitigating the impact of COVID-19 on junior doctors. Another useful resource we have is our local negotiating committees, which we also just call the LNCs. They're based in health boards and they meet regularly with health management to talk about issues that are local to that health board, and they really have made some great achievements and improvements. So yeah, they really do help improve the lives of doctors in Wales. One important thing to be aware of, obviously, when you're starting as an FY1 is your contract, and receiving a new employment contract can be really daunting with lots of T's and C's to check. Our Cardiff-based employment advisors have produced a presentation that can be found on our YouTube channel explaining the different areas of the 2002 junior doctor contract, which is applicable for FY1s in Wales. So like I said, it's on our YouTube channel, and hopefully you'll find it really useful. And I'll share all this information after the event so that you've got the links to YouTube, etc. Another service we have for members is our free contract checking service. So before you sign on the dotted line, do consider getting it checked by our team of experts. 20% of contracts that they checked last year deviated from the national model. So it really is important to check your terms and conditions. They'll check it within 5 working days and compare it to the national model. And if there are any discrepancies, you'll be assigned a dedicated advisor to help you resolve the issues before they become a real big issue. Briefly staying on contracts, again, I think it's really important to make you aware that WJDC is currently working in social partnership with Welsh Government and NHS Wales employers to look at the terms and conditions of service for the current junior doctor contract in Wales. Talks began last year, back in March, and they've been a great opportunity to make progress on long-standing issues such as pay and recognition, working hours, and rota monitoring. The first phase of talks has concluded, and that looked at gathering information on the working lives of junior doctors, the contractual situation in Wales, recruitment and retention, and also look at the 2016 contract in England. The second phase has started, and that will look at more detail of the 2016 contract in England, and looking at what parts of that might work here in Wales and what might not. It's quite a lengthy process. There's some way to go, but we're really keen to make sure that junior doctors in Wales are really engaged in this process and kept up to date at every step of the way. There's more information on our website, and I've just put a note at the bottom there that it could be likely in some time to come that if an agreement is reached between Welsh Government, employers and the BMA on a new contract in Wales, BMA junior doctor members will be asked to vote on whether they agree with that. Like I said, it's a long way to go. We're in the early stages still, and all the information can be found on our website. Another important issue for everyone is time and money. And again, we've got lots of resources online to help you. We supported over 1,600 doctors last year with queries about their rotas, and we've got lots of really useful tools online to help. Or again, you can speak to one of our specialist advisors. Our website has lots of tools to help explain different elements of your pay slip as well. So do check that you're being paid correctly for the work you're doing. And again, really briefly, just staying on finances, on the 26th of May, especially for junior doctors in Wales, we've partnered with financial advisors Chase DeVere to host a 30-minute seminar on personal finance insights and tips to help you manage your money successfully. It will go through NHS pension, tax, income protection, savings and investments and mortgages. It should be a really helpful 30-minute session. You'll be able to answer questions. And like I said, we've designed this specifically with Welsh junior doctors in mind. Again, I'll share all the information after this session as well, so you have it all. Another big area of support that the BMA offers junior doctors is our learning and development. We're here to help you every step of your career with tailored support covering clinical and non-clinical development. Our BMA library has thousands of books, ebooks, journals and research services which can be accessed from anywhere. You don't have to be in London to use the library services. It's one of our most popular benefits. We also have specialist career tools as well, such as Speciality Explorer, which is new for junior doctors, and it can help you research into medical specialities. It can help you consider fields you might not have otherwise considered, and can help you make informed choices when it comes to a speciality you might want to move into. We've also got BMJ Learning, again, an immensely popular benefit for all of our members. There's lots of evidence-based modules there covering clinical topics professional skills, career development as well. Some of the upcoming webinars, again, that have proved really popular with junior doctors include interview skills, leadership and time management. Also, membership to the BMA gives you a free weekly subscription to the BMJ. So it will allow you to stay on top of clinical research, professional development, careers, jobs. It's available in print, on tablet, online. And then finally, the BMA has lots of free webinars as well for all of our members. They're throughout the year on a whole range of topics that you can learn from home. And they're also, majority of them available to play on demand as well. So you can play anytime that you fancy. Finally-ish, one of our biggest benefits and most important benefits are our wellbeing services. These have been exceptional times for the health service, and as new doctors you might find yourself experiencing additional pressures, stress or anxiety, and it's true across the whole workforce. And the BMA is a whole heap of services that are available not to just BMA members but non-members and their families as well, which is really important. So if at any time you need support and you'd like to speak to someone in confidence, the BMA is here for you. It's a 24/7 service for doctors and medical students, and you can speak to a counsellor or you can get peer support from a doctor. Again, all the information is online, and like I said, it's available 24/7 there when you need, free of charge to members, non-members and their families. And then I just thought it's really important to highlight a massive achievement for WJDC recently has been the implementation of the Wales Fatigue and Facilities Charter. All health boards in Wales have signed up to this charter and must take active steps in making sure that it's implemented within their health boards. The charter contains provisions beyond the terms and conditions of your contract here in Wales. And it ensures things like fewer longer days and consecutive shifts, as well as setting a standard for rest facilities during shifts, or facilities if you find that you're too tired to drive home. It also outlines a robust framework for monitoring the implementation of the charter through our local negotiating committees. And also there should be a senior member of staff appointed at the health board to make sure it is being implemented. It's the first step in making sure that there's a wider shift of attitudes towards fatigue in the workplace. And we'll be making sure that it is implemented and working closely with Welsh Government and NHS employees to make sure that it is. You can find out about the charter, and there's some FAQs on our website. And yeah, you can contact us with any issues, and it's easy to find your local LNC contacts to make sure that it is being implemented in your health board, or if you think there are issues, you can contact them and let them know. So yeah, this really is finally for me now. To access all of our benefits, you have to become a BMA member. Like I said, there are an awful lot of guidance on our website for non-members as well, and our wellbeing services are for non-members as well. But to get the full range, you can join the BMA via our website. And here are my contact details, and if you do have any questions, or now or in the future, please do get in contact with us. More than happy to answer them whenever, and hopefully I'll be able to share all this content with you after the event. But yeah, thanks again for having this.
Thank you very much, Regina. Yes, it's a very good introduction to the BMA. Which personally plays a very important part in really the working environment. I mean, I use the BMJ Learning app. I have the journal with me as well, and obviously they do a lot of help in terms of kind of rota coordinating and stuff like that. So thank you very much again. Next up, we have Natasha from the Medical Defense Union, just to give a quick introduction. And after that, I'll be giving my talk as well. So do stick to the end. And of course, if you have any questions, pop on the chat then. Natasha, are you there?
Hi, Lim. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. just bear with me. Just getting my presentation. Perfect. So thank you, Liam, and thank you everybody for joining us this evening. My name is Natasha and I'm the Medical Defence Union Liaison Manager for the South West and Wales. So I will be your point of contact, definitely moving forward for your F1 and F2 years. This is very much a whistle-stop tour this evening. I've got quite a few things to get through and a very limited time. So excuse me if I do seem like I'm rushing through them, but I will stick around after for any questions because I want to make sure everybody knows exactly what they need to do moving forwards when it comes to their defence organisation. But I'm going to speak to you just about some common pitfalls where not just foundation doctors, but doctors in general do get into trouble. So it's just a useful kind of way to get yourself into some good habits now before you start your F1. So keeping yourself safe and what to do when things go wrong. First of all, just looking at record keeping, it might seem quite obvious the two main reasons why we keep records. So first of all, the primary reason is obviously to have a clear, accurate picture of care and treatment, and obviously also to aid the memory, and also obviously for communication with colleagues and continuity of care. The secondary reason is for an audit tool if we ever get audited, but also for your medical legal protection. And actually from a defence organisation perspective, the medical lawyers that we have working for the Medical Defence Union often tell me that they'll know straight away from looking at their doctor's records whether or not they'll be successful at defending that doctor. So it's so important, and you're at a really good stage now where you're going into F1 to really get into some good habits when it comes to your records. So you can never be seen to be writing too much. Please don't ever feel like you're writing too much in the notes. However, you will be criticised for not writing enough. And we do know how time sensitive things are now, now more than ever. But yeah, please don't try to skip on your records because the records are so important, not only for your colleagues, but also for yourself when you're looking at a defence perspective. So when you look at a quality record, what does a quality record look like? So it needs to be legible. So if you've got really poor handwriting like myself, just make sure that they are really legible. Obviously, we are going to be looking towards going towards computerized notes, but at the moment, and a lot of the trusts in South Wales, I know, are going to be handwritten notes for the foreseeable. Contemporaneous, this basically means that they need to be written at the time of the consultation or as quick or as soon after as possible. So we don't have an actual window. The GMC don't give us a specific window, but the window that we use is 24 hours. So if you ever go over 24 hours of writing up your notes, you'd need to have a reason why you've gone over the 24 hours, because after that time, you are going to start to forget things and you're not going to be writing as much as what you could do if you did it obviously within or straight after the consultation. They need to be date and timed, and also they need to be have a signature as well. If you have a signature that somebody won't be able to read, so one of your colleagues couldn't pick it up and know who had written that, then it's good to just use your initials. Obviously, they need to be objective, and they need to have a patient history. They have the differential diagnosis, positive and negative findings, which might seem pretty obvious, but we often get doctors write lots and lots about the positive findings, but not so much about the negative findings. So making sure that you actually write both in the notes, and also obviously positive and negative answers to questions as well, and the progress and management plan. All of these, I'm sure, seem pretty common sense. This is the legislation from the GMC, from the Good Medical Practice Guide. I'm not going to read it to you because I'm sure you guys will be reading that before you start in a couple of months' time, but that is the legislation from the GMC. Moving on to confidentiality, which is another really key area, and it's something that you really need to obviously make sure that you're adhering to all the confidentiality protocols now, and moving forward, it is a really, really hot topic when it comes to doctors kind of getting into trouble and falling into trouble with when it comes to keeping things confidential. So what information is confidential? All of these things would be considered confidential. Any information between a doctor and their patient would be considered confidential. So whether the doctor, when the doctor has actually seen the patient, when any clinical information, photographs, videos, emails, audio recorded consultations, and anything else, emails, conversations, anything written in the notes, that is all confidential, and that's all confidential obviously between the doctor and the patient. I've got a scenario here, and I'll just read through it pretty quickly. So just apologies again if I'm skimming through this, but it's a good one for, I think, for foundation doctors to kind of see how relevant it can be and how easy things can go wrong. So at the end of her shift, an FY1 decided to clear out her locker and get rid of a number of post-take ward round sheets that were no longer needed. The papers had patient stickers with lists of diagnoses and outstanding investigations listed beside each name. The FY1 intended to shred them in the secretary's office, but bumped into a colleague on her way and went to the cafe next to the hospital for a coffee. The papers fell out of her pocket and were handed back into the hospital. The trust took disciplinary action for the loss of confidential data and failure to declare the loss. So you can see there how quickly this can turn really nasty for the doctor and anyone that was to lose any information like that. If something does get handed in within the hospital, it's a lot easier to contain when it comes to how serious that investigation will get. If you start taking things away from the hospital to take home to write up notes or to do to update some records at home, perhaps after a shift, and you start to lose things outside the hospital, it becomes very, very much more serious. So if you can, don't take anything outside of your shift. Try and do everything you can within the hospital premises and don't take anything home with you. And if you are, make sure that you are doing it electronically and they are password protected. But you can see there, obviously the trust took disciplinary action for the loss against that FY1, and that's why a defence organisation would be so important, because that wouldn't be covered with your NHS indemnity. I'm just going to really quickly touch on social media, because this is a really, really, again, a really hot topic, specifically not just at foundation doctors, but all doctors. You need to make sure that moving forward, you are adhering by the correct rules when it comes to doctors. And I'm sure you guys will be able to recognise this Twitter photo that Jeremy Hunt put up. So Jeremy Hunt was at UCLH and posted a photograph to Twitter on which the names of patients were clearly identifiable on the whiteboard in the background. So the statement from the GMC is that the standards expected of doctors do not change because they are communicating through social media rather than face-to-face or through other traditional media. However, using social media creates new circumstances in which the established principles apply. So moving on to some of these principles from the GMC, I'll just pick out a few. So you must make sure that your conduct justifies your patient's trust in you and the public's trust in the profession. And you should not share identifiable information about patients in an internet chat forum. So just picking out a few there, but you can see how important it is. When it comes to social media, I'm sure you're all aware it's very, very hard to guarantee that you've deleted something. So just please do make sure. Something that comes up quite often that I hear about, not just again with foundation doctors, but WhatsApp groups. And I know there's been a case recently up against the GMC, a group of doctors. Please be careful when it comes to WhatsApp groups, when it comes to sharing information, when it becomes to actually that conversation can get out. It might be that one person in that WhatsApp group doesn't like that something's been said, and very quickly that becomes very, very, very serious. So just please be careful when it comes to things like that. So your defence organisation, I wanted to just talk to you briefly about kind of what we are and why it's so important to have a defence organisation. I know there's many organisations out there for you, and we've heard from a few of them this evening already. These are just a few of the organisations that you probably hear about and you probably are signed up to already. All equally important, and I'm just going to obviously talk to you today about the Medical Defence Organisation. So talking to you about the MDU, we've been around since 1885. We're a mutual organisation and we're the UK market leader. When it comes to what you get from your medical defence organisation, from us specifically, you'll get any indemnity for any work not already indemnified by the NHS. We have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week advice line, which is so, so important. I advise all of our doctors to call us. Anything that you're not sure about, 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, please make use of that advice line. It's what it's there for. We obviously give you expert defence and support at GMC, coroners, police or disciplinaries. Membership benefits such as all the online learning and renewal gifts. We've got a hell of a lot more online learning now since COVID-19 has kind of hit, and obviously we're having to do so much more online. And actually specifically for foundation doctors, we've got lots of online learning that we're sending out to you guys. So please do have a look at that. We also have a 24-hour press office that we use for any media inquiries for our doctors. And we obviously help with interview statements and patient complaints. One thing that foundation doctors often get asked to submit would be a statement of involvement, because you are involved in the care of so many patients, but you're often within a team of doctors that are under care of one patient. So you might actually be asked to write a statement of involvement. If you ever get asked to do that, please do, again, call your defence organisation. That's what we're here for. And something like that, you should get advice on it. It should be written really by us. So that's something that we would do for you. What makes the MDU special? I've mentioned we've been around since 1885, so we were the first organisation set up to defend the reputation of doctors. We were the first organisation to have a 24-hour advice line, sorry, and we're the first organisation to actually cover Good Samaritan Acts. Again, that's something that isn't covered by your NHS indemnity, and it's something that the GMC actually makes sure that you do need to have cover for. We have an in-house legal team. It's the largest in-house legal team, all based in London. At the moment, we're all based from home. I mentioned before the 24-hour press office and also liaison managers. So you have people like myself. Ordinarily, I would like to be in front of you face to face to be doing something like this, but this is definitely the next best thing. But I do teaching in all of the Welsh trusts, actually, within South Wales especially, and all of the South West as well. So depending on where you end up for your F1, I'm sure I'll probably see you hopefully in the not too distant future face to face doing some teaching for you. Your membership with the MDU, I'm sure all of you guys will be student members. You probably joined up to us 5 years ago when you were a fresher and got the Oxford Medical Dictionary. Moving forwards, and some of you might have already done this, but your student membership is designed to cover you while you're studying. So when you graduate in July, it will no longer be in place because you won't be a student anymore. So you will no longer have membership with the MDU unless you've signed up for F1. So F1 membership with us is £10 for the whole year. And you can see there some of the benefits you get, but also you'll get one of these gifts. So obviously, if you haven't joined up yet, please do. There is a QR code on a couple of my slides and I'll put it up at the end. And I'll also put a link on the chat where you can actually just sign up online. It's £10 for the whole year. It's just a one-off payment. And if you sign up, obviously, we'll send you one of these gifts. It'll probably be about 1.5 to 2 weeks that we send that out to you. And just talking to you about a campaign that we're running, which is really relevant for you guys. And again, this has been put into place since COVID-19. So we're working with 2 different charities, the Doctor Support Network and also the Royal Medical Benevolent Fund. And the £10 subscription that you pay, we're actually going to donate 50% of that subscription and split it across these 2 charities. So this is going to be in place for all of the 2021 and 2022 qualifiers. So your year and all of the 4th years out there. We'll be doing this for the next 12 months. And you don't have to do anything. You sign up and we'll be splitting 50% of the subscriptions across those 2 charities. And that's just our way really of kind of giving back and showing you how much we're here to support you guys. Again, you've got the QR code there, so you can sign up online by scanning that. And there's my details there, guys. So you've got my email address and contact number. If you're not sure if you have signed up yet, or if you wanted to get some information about your membership, don't hesitate to give me a call. I'd love to talk to you, and best of luck really for your FY1, depending on where you're going. I love all the hospitals that I work with in South Wales. So it'd be great to see you hopefully in the not too distant future. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Natasha. That was a great presentation and a good introduction to MDU. If anyone has any question, don't hesitate to pop them into the chat, and the free speakers will be happy to answer them anytime then. Moving on, there will be one last presentation. So let me just share my screen to you. Okay. Right. Can you see my screen? Is there any issues there? Anyone? Okay. So I'll just crack on then. So this is my part. We have the MDU, the BMA, and the GMC giving the presentation. So it'd be the last part, which is how to be prepared F1 in August. Just a quick recap. This is the 2nd session, and we are having future sessions as well. Those are the dates which has changed a bit since our 1st session. But yeah, we'll be talking about the AFP, audits, QIP, the portfolios, kind of communication skills. We'll be talking about payslips, which is quite important, really, and also about jobs all the way up to July. Then. So do stick with us through Facebook, and we will try to update you for all the sessions there. And this is a kind of QR code for our feedback form. So we would appreciate if you be able to kind of fill them in as we go along, as it'll be very helpful for improving our future sessions. So let's say we are assuming that your start date is on the 4th of August. That would mean that you still have 86 days until your first day as an F1. For some people, that'll be a bit earlier because they'll be having a shadowing period, and the period can be different depending on which hospital you're in Wales. And if you're a Cardiff Uni graduate, of course, you'll be doing your SSA at the moment, which is definitely very helpful for preparing for your first day. So the question, which is most important, is what can you do to prepare yourself? So these are a few things that I kind of pick up while looking through online resources and personal kind of experiences, and also experiences from people I know who did their foundation training in Wales. So most important thing would be in terms of the induction booklet. They are sent to us before we start for a reason. They are very important because they give you details about what to expect throughout your foundation 1 year. Tells you information about the hospital, your on-calls, and quite a bit about what to do for the whole year, really. And there are a few things that you can do before the start date as well. So sorting out your provisional registration, as mentioned by Dan from GMC, your accommodation. So hopefully everyone's aware that the accommodation in Wales is free for your first year. So sorting that out would be very much helpful before you start, so that you don't have to kind of worry about it when you have many other things to worry about in work. Sorting out your payroll forms, your occupational health, if your immunization forms and all. If you are an international doctor, you have to sort out your visa, and filling in all your pre-employment checks. There are quite a lot of them, so it would take some time for you to go through each and one of them, but it is very important for you to go through all of them and helpful before you start work, so that you can kind of save your mind from all these things that you could have sorted out before. The QS portfolio is something that you can sort out beforehand as well. We will talk about it in our session in the future. There is also the ESR, sell expenses and intricate. So ESR is where you get your pay slips, and sell expenses is where you kind of hand in your expenses for traveling expenses, or kind of relocation expenses as well. Interpret is where you go to apply for study leave and annual leave. So all these are things that you can sort out before you start work. So if you haven't been told how to kind of create those logins, you can always ask your point of contact from the hospital to help sort it out for you beforehand. If you haven't been sent one yet, the hospital map and layout is very important, especially if you're in a big hospital like the UHW, because it is maze in it. In terms of job rota, we are supposed to have them 6 weeks before we start our start date. So if you can kind of contact your departmental kind of coordinators, or if they don't contact you within the 6 weeks, you can just send an email to ask them to get the job rota. And it's helpful to have your job rota before you start, because that you can kind of sort out your annual leave, your study leave, and kind of plan ahead for things you want to do in the future, right? One thing that you can do that can be helpful would be to change your emails. I know that a lot of you will be graduating, and so you'll still be using your university email, and that will be cancelled after you graduate. So sometimes they don't send you reminders, but you have to remember to change your emails to either your personal or work email in the NHS email. And if you do have any important documents in your university email, don't forget to send them so that you have a copy of it. Booking your ALS PSA if you haven't done it yet, and also the blood transfusion education dates are very important, and sorting them out early will be very helpful in terms of planning for the future. And that is why you need your rota, so that you know when you can actually book those dates. And also shadowing period, and also the senior student assistantship is definitely a very helpful thing to help with starting as an F1. So on your first day, what can you do to kind of help make things a bit easier? When I think back to my first day, I remember that most of the day we were having induction sessions, and they were very dull, very boring, very dry sessions. But they are very important sessions that you have to attend and you have to pay attention to, because they go
sorry
through.
to
So on your first day, there are a few things that can be helpful to kind of make things a bit easier. So we're talking about the induction session. They'll go through kind of induction on your Welsh Clinical Portal, which is something that is good to figure out early on, because that is what you'll be spending most of the time sorting out in the hospital computers. So kind of figuring how to use it will be helpful. And also Synapse, which is the system that most hospitals in Wales use for kind of imaging, so X-rays, CTs, MRIs, all go through Synapse. So if you can sort out your logins and figuring out the system, it would be very helpful in making your first day a bit easier. Getting your ID badge sorted. Most people get their kind of ID photos taken on the same day, but I would expect that we'll be doing that before, so that you probably get your ID badge on the day itself. But if you don't have your ID badge, it'll be a bit of a problem getting around the hospital. So getting that sorted will help. Setting up your work email, and also another reminder to switch it from the university emails. Downloading apps that will be helpful. So I have a nice slide that I will show you a list of apps that you can download on your phone that will be helpful to make things a bit easier. So after the induction, you'll be meeting up with the ward staff, and that would be useful in terms of introducing yourself, remembering the names and roles, which would be helpful in the future. And also kind of getting yourself familiarizing yourself of the layout of the ward and hospital itself, especially in the ward that you're based in. If you have time, try to find the radiology department, the doctor's mess, a toilet, a canteen, and the doctor's office, which will be helpful in terms of finding a place to rest, and also to request scans, etc. I wrote down printers and fax machines. Printers will be something that you will have to fight for throughout your foundation years. And some hospitals still use fax machines. So if you don't know how to use a fax machine, it'll be good to kind of figure it out before you come into a situation where you need to learn how to use one. But the printers, all of the printers in different wards, in different hospitals will be in different names. So if you can figure out which printer actually works and whether it prints A4 or for sticky labels or for blood forms, it will be very helpful when you need it, really. Figuring out how to do TTOs and discharge summaries. TTOs mainly are done through Welsh Clinical Portal, but some hospitals use written TTOs. So trying to figure out which one they actually use will be helpful. And discharge summaries is the same thing. Most hospitals use Welsh Clinical Portal, but some departments use a different system, or even they are using a kind of paper system. So you have to write down everything. So trying to figure that out will help as well. This is a very important point, which is the handover files. So handing over kind of where the patient list is saved in the computer, which computer, which file what's the name, and also figuring out how many copies will be needed to be printed out before ward round in the morning can be very helpful. Bleeps, most wards have their own bleeps, on-call bleeps, and they are left in different places, in different wards, in different hospitals. So asking the previous doctors or seniors, nurses where they are left will be very helpful. And remember not to bring the bleep home with you because that would be a nightmare. Treatment room, figuring where the treatment room is and where everything is, needles, blood bottles, they are all different kind of in different places in different wards. So if you find out how to kind of gather things up, it will save time a lot. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask your senior doctors. I wouldn't expect any other F1s to be there anymore on your first day. So you probably have to ask the senior doctors, the SHOs, the registrars, and also the nurses and pharmacists. They're all really helpful people that you can speak to if you have any questions. So I was talking about useful apps that you can kind of download beforehand. The BMF for medications, Induction, which is an app where you can find out hospital numbers and bleep numbers that you specific to the hospital you're working in. Outlook will be the app you go for connecting your work email to your phone. Some people prefer not to do that, but it can be helpful because using the hospital computer to access your emails can be a nightmare sometimes. Microguide is for micro antibiotics kind of advice, helpful, very helpful. And different hospitals have different guidelines. BMJ best practice, as mentioned before, very helpful for kind of basic kind of information. Welsh Clinical Portal has a mobile app, so you can download that, which you can use to assess kind of patient results remotely. Very helpful when you're on call and you can't leave your a sick patient to go and chase the blood for another sick patient in a different site of hospital, the hospital site. Pocket Doctor, which is a very simple kind of guide for basic advice, investigations, etc. Up to Date, which is a helpful resource. MDCalc for calculations, kind of scores. iResource for resuscitation kind of advice. MyESR for ESR, so getting a payslip. Expenses would be for your set expenses, requesting expenses. Teams would be for Microsoft Teams, and Rota apps, which is different for different hospital sites. So you will have to ask from what I can, we use Allocate back in Wrexham, but there isn't an app that we use in Cardiff. So it really depends on which hospital you work in. Things that can be helpful when you're on call. You should be given basic information about your on-calls during induction. And if you aren't asked for it, ask where handover is done, what time it is done, and who would you be expecting to hand over to. Ask about your role and responsibility, whether you are the one clocking or covering the ward, or will you be doing both. Ask whether you're carrying the crash bleep, and if you are, what your role is in a crash call. So in a good situation, the registrar who will be leading the crash call will allocate your job or your role in a crash call when you start your on-call shift. So if not, it's to go to ask for it, because that will be very helpful when you reach a crash call. You are the first one to reach to a crash call. Remember your kit management. You learn this all in medical school, so you don't really need me to remind you on those. And be prepared to do a lot of cannulations, bloods, ABGs, catheters, and sometimes in very stressful environments where people will keep chasing you for it. So if you need help, raise it up. If you're not confident doing it, raise it up. But before you go into on-calls, just try to remember how to do it and how to do it right, so you don't have to keep waste too much time doing those jobs. Another thing that can help is to speak to other doctors. Try to get a group going with your other F1s, fellow F1s, because you are all in the same boat. Share your concerns, share your questions, queries. Create a WhatsApp group, which is very helpful, so they can share kind of information in an easier way, and share information about what your department does and how referrals to each specialty works, or requesting special investigations like OGDs or PCIs, and how that works for that specific departments, because different hospitals, different departments work differently. In Wales, if you're graduating from Wales, you have the SFA. This is a very useful time for you to prepare yourself. Try to act like an F1 starting from this SFA period. And because there is an F1 there before you, so if you can ask any questions, ask them, because they are the ones who know what the jobs is like for you. And ask them for advice. Just get yourself familiarized on how things work, and use that time wisely. So I gathered a few tips and advice online, and also through forums and all. And these are a few things that we'll mention regularly. So if you're in a difficult situation, try to do as much as you can. But if you're not confident, raise it up, raise it to a senior, or in some situations, you can raise it to a nurse or a fellow doctor. And as long as you keep things safe, don't stress about it too much. Things go wrong, but as long as you do the best you can and keep things safe, don't stress about it too much. Blood taking, you'll be doing a lot of it. And one advice that was raised was to, when you use a butterfly needle, don't take the blue bottle first, because the air in the butterfly tube will go into the blue bottle, and you won't reach the mark line. So don't use the blue bottle first. Probably use the yellow bottle, then the blue, then the purple, and take group and safe. Mark them 30 minutes apart, and that will save you a lot of time then. Discharge summaries, they are your bane of your life. You'll be doing a lot of them, so try to figure out how to do them. Different departments have a different way of doing it, but most of them do it in Watch Clinical Portal. Learn the system, learn how the follow-up works for your specific specialty, and try to figure out how to do the discharges as soon as possible. Don't leave them for too long, because they can build up really quickly. And when you reach a point where you see a pile and you just break down every time you see that pile, don't be that person. Working overtime is very common, and I myself went through that. But try not to work overtime. Learn to hand over jobs to the on-call team, and prioritize your job would help a lot in terms of not working overtime. Remember to take breaks in between work and leave on time as well. Learn how to request investigations as soon as you can, and that includes procedures. So that would be like OGD, PCI, as I mentioned before, blood X-rays, CT, MRI, PET scans, all this. Try to figure out how to request them, whether it's a paper request, online request, and who to hand it to and where to hand it to, whether it needs to be signed off by a registrar consultant. Ask questions if you're unsure. Don't think you are bothering anyone by asking questions, but of course try to do the best as you can before you raise the question. So if you see a sick patient, assess the patient, read the notes, call and then call your senior and ask questions that are related to the specific situation. But of course, if it's an urgent situation, don't hesitate and just call a senior if you're not confident in handling that. This is very important. Try to sort your leave early, both annual and study leave. Don't leave it to later because your SHOs, your registrars, they will be way ahead of you in kind of applying for those. So if you can sort them out early on, that would be helpful. Have a job list. So this is something that I do every day. I come to work, do walk around and start a job list. You can do it on your patient list, or you can start it on a blank paper, whichever is you prefer. And you can do it on an on-call as well. So a job list will help you in terms of prioritizing your job and kind of figuring how much time you have left and whether there are jobs that you can hand over to the on-call team. And requesting bloods for the next day, remember that flaps would do it. Check whether there are flaps that would do it the next day. Sometimes on bank holidays, they don't have any flap services. And if on the next day you requested a blood and you notice that it's still not on the system after 12 o'clock in the afternoon, then think, oh, has the blood actually been done? Because sometimes they don't get done, and then you have to deal with, and then you have to hand over the job to the on-call team, which is not ideal, especially for routine bloods. So try to get these things, remember these things in your mind so that it will be helpful when you start your job there. So I know that that's very basic. That is just a kind of like a run through of my experiences from people online and also some forums. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. There are a lot of kind of resources online that you can go to that will give you probably the same run through and also their own experiences. So if you can have a bit of a research, that would definitely help when on your start date. So that will be the end for my presentation. Sorry that we took a bit longer than expected, but if you don't mind filling in the feedback form, that would be very helpful. And also if you remember, there are a lot of sessions that we have planned for the future. So do like our Facebook page, so that you stay updated on our future sessions. Thank you very much for attending. Let me just have a look at the chat and see if anyone has asked any questions. Right, so yes, the slides. Thank you very much, Nadia. Is the vacutainers in UHL and UHW? So yes, all hospitals use vacutainers. What happens is now most people nowadays use butterflies. They're more expensive, but they're easier to use. And connected to vacutainers, yes. So we all use vacutainers, probably in all hospitals at the moment. And please, can you go back to the last slide? So which slide are you asking for?
Sorry, just the one that had the resources on it just before the scan.
Yes, of course. Is this the one then? I will be sending a slide on the Facebook page. So if you want, I will share that there then. Is that okay? Any questions that anyone wants to ask? I'll try my best to answer. Nothing? Okay. So thank you very much again for everyone who attended. We'll be sharing the recording online as well. So if you do have anyone who wants to, who couldn't attend the session but want to watch it, we'll share it online, and so let them know that there's a video recording. Once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you all soon then. Stay safe. Bye.